Hello, and welcome to Movies and Tea After Hours, and of course, if you are there. And more importantly, welcome to Shark Week 4. As regular listeners to the show will know, at the end of every season, we like to do a little bit of an After Hours section, just to break up the seasons and allow us to look at films that we otherwise may not get to cover, or whose directors haven't got strong enough filmography to justify a whole season worth of re-evaluation. But more importantly, we also like to work in a shark movie in this period, and previous episodes have seen us look at the likes of The Shallows and Deep Blue Sea, such classic cinema that it is. And tonight we're looking at one which is again more recent, but for whatever reason fell under the radar shortly after its release in 2012, and that is the Kimble Rendell movie Bait. For those obviously not familiar with the film, it's a Australian shark movie, which in itself is kind of a rarity, and the film itself sees a group of shoppers and employers of a supermarket trapped underground with a man-eating 12-foot great white shark after a tsunami floods the local area. Certainly one of the more unique concepts for a shark movie, but then again, when we look at the current status of shark movies, it's probably not the most random one out there. But Kim, I mean, this was first time watch for yourself. What did you think of Bait?
Bait was, I think it's more like it's a really fun, guilty pleasure, but then I usually feel that way about shark movies in general. I don't know what makes what's considered a great shark movie. I mean, I had a lot of fun with this one. I thought there was a lot of predictable moments.
Okay.
Like the movie went in a way where, you kind of had an idea where things are going to go. But at the same time, like, I felt like some of the scenes did have it was done well, like, especially, like, in the beginning when they were, before, you actually got to see the shark and, the assumptions of how big it is and, you just see things moving and whatnot. Like, the introduction of the shark was really good.
I mean, when the original concept was thrown out there, it was thought, oh my god, that's probably one of the most stupid of ideas out there. And then obviously since then we've obviously seen the likes of Sharknado and Sharktopus and Two-Headed Shark Attack and Five-Headed Shark Attack. So the standard of what's acceptable for a shark movie has certainly been lowered, but this was actually a very surprising watch, much like The Shallows, because every time when you have a shark movie now, you think that it's going to be sort of quick cuts as soon as something interesting happens. There's very ropey looking CGI sharks, and yes, while there is some questionable CGI sharks in this film, there's also some good practical effects in there as well. Just looking, obviously, first of all, at the production behind this. I mean, this film was written by Russell McCauley, who is probably best known for directing the Highlander movies, and it's also directed by Kimble Rendell, who is a musician and second unit director who's worked on films such as The Matrix Reloaded, Revolutions, iRobot, and Ghost Rider, just to name a few of his credits. And his work as a director, though, has been, a little hit and miss. He only has currently 3 films to his credit. Before this, he directed The Slasher Cut in 2000 and Guardians of the Tomb in 2018. This film coming right in the middle, and it's probably arguably his strongest work to date. It's there's something about this film that I just really, really like. I mean, it's a very sort of encapsulated sort of setup. We have 2 locations essentially. We have the shop floor, which is pretty much submerged in water, so the only dry land is on top of the shelves. And we also have the parking garage, where we have another group of characters who have to sort of battle to deal with their situation, and they're a shark as well. So, I mean, first of all, obviously I have to say, how did you find this location? I mean, the film itself obviously likes to throw in a big shark, which is obviously in this case a 12-foot great white. And for myself, it seems like a very cramped location to put a 12-foot great white in, but at the same time, I love the visualness of the location and sort of the almost close of it, because they have things around them that they can use to assist the sort of cause, but at the same time, it's very sort of limited sort of space of where they can go.
good shark movies, know how to really utilize that limited space, because most shark movies, or pretty much any creature features, is set in some kind of like confined location most of the time. And shark movies work the best with these confined locations because they have, these big sharks which are, dominating an area where it's also restricted for them, and you have like limited access, so it kind of gives that, it's like you said, it's claustrophobic, so you have that kind of like what they can do, like what that shark can do in this case. Obviously the shark does a lot of jumping. At the same time, I kind of like, what really works here is, I think that, you have two locations, and both of them has those, urgent moments. And they work with their scenario fairly well because, like obviously in the shop or whatever, electricity becomes a big deal when things are, coming apart. And, with a giant, conductor right below you, it's kind of dangerous. And you have these like little moments like that where you need to do all these things, and they need to use everything around them to kind of get them out of the situation. And a lot of them is used really cleverly. And I think that's one of the things I really appreciate. I think it's maybe not like, you kind of also give your characters kind of like that thing where they need to set them up for some kind of, sacrifice, or set them up for some kind of, life-threatening situation or whatnot. And sometimes, you think about it and you're like, in these dire situations, you're sitting as the audience, and, there are some scenes where we're like, oh, wow, they should have thought about that. But then you're like, it's kind of like, well, it makes sense, I guess, if you were in this type of situation, and you kind of want to think, well, if I'm not going to make it out, I might not make it out of this anyways, I might as well just give it a shot, even no matter how dangerous it is or not thought through it is.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I just want to talk about the cast we have here. Well, on the surface, it seems that a lot of this cast are pretty much unknowns. I mean, the most noteworthy member of the cast, looking at the list, is Julian McMahon, who was...
I mean, for me, I've seen the main girl in Step Up 3, and I've seen her in some other movie that I can't remember right now, but I remembered seeing it before. Wait, let me see.
The fact she's in Step Up 3 is the reason I don't remember her being anything, because I pretty much eradicate that.
Yeah, no, and then she was in You're Next, which is, the movie she did before this one. Yeah, she was in You're Next. I mean, there's also Phoebe Tonkin, who plays the daughter of the security guard or whatever, or the cop. I don't remember if he's a security guard or cop. And she was in Vampire Diaries for a while, and then she was part of the spin-off and the originals, which I didn't watch, but I know she was there. And then she's in a bunch of other stuff too. She's in like random other things, like I think she was in some other horror movies too. I don't remember anymore right now.
It's interesting, obviously, when you look at the when you start going for the cast. I mean, you got our main lead guy, Xavier Samuel, who was in Loved Ones, and he was also in Twilight, which is, again, you'd be forgiven for forgetting that. So a lot of people who are in Home and Away, it has to be said as well. You got Lincoln Hayden Higgs Lewis, who was in Tomorrow When the War Began, which again is a really great movie, which for whatever reason fell under the radar. It's kind of like Red Dawn. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting to see McMahon there, mainly because, as I said, he had his sort of big break. He was doing like Nip Tuck in the States. He did the Fantastic Four movies, playing Doctor Doom or Victor Doom. I can't remember which way they went with those movies. And now he's obviously doing The Runaways as well. So he's really loves his super products. But it's really great to see him in here, but kind of bizarre at the same time when you get used to him doing an American accent to suddenly do his normal Australian accent.
I think that applies to a lot of them. Like, I was really surprised because I never knew that Phoebe Tonkin was Australian until she did this movie. Because before, a lot of actors, once they move to other places, they keep, they do their American accent most of the time, and then you forget that they're, they can possibly be from somewhere else unless you really look them up on IMDb or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, while the cast might not be instantly recognizable, I did think that all of them were good in their various sort of parts. I mean, there's no sort of real sort of standout person sort of stealing the scenery. I mean, obviously,
it's actually one of the surprising factors because you start off this movie and I have to say the starting part, building that drama and that whole situation about losing a friend and whatever, and then setting it up where it breaks his the male lead's relationship and whatnot. It kind of like at that point I was a bit skeptical. I'm not gonna lie. That first part, setting up these characters, I was really skeptical. I was like, oh god, what am I doing? This is gonna be bad, And then when they actually have that, the actual movie starts and you start seeing these people get together, and then that tsunami hits very quickly, and then they just you spend like 80% of the movie in this situation, and it really changes the dynamic of the movie in general, and a part of me hoped that it didn't start off that way because it would have been so, like, I don't really know if it was really necessary to have to set up your characters to be in that kind of situation. Like, it wasn't like, because they had so many characters, it wasn't like anybody did something more than other people. Maybe, like, the three caught under in the garage had a lot more, things to do because they only were three people in one location.
I mean, I would say it is important to obviously establish that Josh, our main guy, was formerly a lifeguard before his best friend gets killed, and obviously his fiance's brother.
It gives him that power to have, the know-hows of this water and sharks and, being able to determine all these things because he has the know-how, and now he's not working as a lifeguard anymore.
No, because we obviously have the initial shark attack happens, and again, this is the problem with the film being initially released in 3D. There's a lot of stuff that is there just to play up 3D effects, and because it's been transferred back into 2D, it really sort of stands out now as which bits were formerly 3D. So when you have like the shark jump out the water, or you have something thrown at the screen, it's like really obvious what was meant to have been in 3D. This isn't like a polished 3D production like Avatar or, dare we say it, Life of Pi. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was important obviously to set up their relationship. I mean, we joined him a year later after the shark attack. He's now working in the supermarket, and it basically just means that it gives them the ability to write off any sort of skills that he needs, although why for the love of God, he feels that you need to remove a shard of metal that's gone through somebody's leg, I don't know, which is just like, I was watching that going, oh my God, that's such a Neddy no-no right there. I mean,
But I guess, I guess it was really just, it kind of like builds the gory parts, and it kind of gives that, that the elements you kind of need, I guess, but at the same time, maybe it's a good choice, bad choice, whatever. It didn't really end up playing that big of a factor, other than at one point when he keeps wanting to go into the water. So that's one of your bigger issues. But I mean, in general, I think the characters were done good. Like everybody kind of played their part, and whether they ended up coming out of this alive or dead or whatever. I think it was just because there were so many of them that it just felt like you could lose a few more, or you could, like, no one really had that, standout moment or anything. Obviously, you're giving, the main character, Josh, a whole lot more to do because he's kind of, like, running around. Then he has that final, saving moment where, he gets, and all that stuff. But, I think everything was fairly balanced. No one stands out to me particularly a lot. And obviously, they have one part where they're like, oh, they're trying to trick you into, like, the whole situation where they had that whole robbery going down and the partner and, fake out and all that stuff. They try to add a lot of, I guess, little dilemmas and little dramas between the characters to kind of keep it going. And a lot of times I always wonder when I watch shark movies whether adding so much of this is really necessary, because you're about to die already. You're facing against a 12-foot shark and you might not get out of here. So in this case, should most people just put aside all those, other things they're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, it's the problem with the film is, I mean, you get all these characters who all seem to be interlinked in one way or another, and they're very sort of paper thin, sort of drawn out in like sort of characters. I mean, yes, you've got like the shoplifting chick who's dating the store assistant whose dad's a cop, and we got the minor drama of her sort of lashing out because she's unable to deal with her mother's death. At the same time, we've got Josh, whose former fiance Tina has returned, but she's got a new boyfriend, and it's always funny when you have like the old love turns up with their new partner, because it's only going to go one of two ways. One, the new partner is going to get eliminated in some way, or two, they're going to find some way to work it out, because he'll find a new love interest in someone who's always been there, but he's not noticed because he's been hung up on the old girl. So I felt kind of bad that for the boyfriend coming in going, yeah, you're probably not going to make it to the end of this picture. Although he does get probably one of the most bizarre, most random, unexpected deaths of the film, it has to be said.
Yeah, well, that was really, that was one of the parts where, it was kind of like, it was very unique the way they did that whole part, and a little unbelievable in certain ways, but at the same time, like, it also gave him that, that sacrifice, right? That hero moment.
Yeah.
He couldn't really be the hero, but he could be a hero in this moment where he was able to, sacrifice himself for whatever they needed to achieve.
His his short-sightedness to realize the flaw in the amazing homemade shark suit plan.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of, while we're talking about characters snuffing it, did we have a favourite death here in the film? Because that's always a highlight of shark movies, is like giving us some creative deaths here and there.
I would say that one was pretty good, but I think like one of the shocking moments, which wasn't really that shocking because you expected it, was kind of like the whole hanging from the vent and then getting bitten in half.
Oh yeah,
moment.
The store manager, that's my favourite one.
Yeah, but the thing is, the director is really good in this sense because he doesn't really need to use a lot of the shark underwater, but more like he has that overview moment. It's kind of like when we watch The Meg, where we see like the shadow of the shark a lot, and you see where the shark is through the shadows that you see.
Yeah.
And I think that's really clever because then, you kind of have to minimize the your lack of budget and and crappy CGI or whatever. And you can still make something very suspenseful because now you get an idea where the shark is and the people have an idea where the shark is. And it's kind of like their perspective of what's going on, right? So, I thought that was pretty unique. I mean, you kind of expect it to happen. Like, that death scene was really kind of a shock, but at the same time, you kind of expected it to happen. So, I don't know. I mean, I felt like I called a lot of the death scenes. So now I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what's my favorite one. Do you have a favorite one?
The manager hanging off the venting getting bitten in half is pretty great.
Yeah.
Especially because you don't expect it from this film. And even though there was like the precursors, when we have the tsunami sequence, and we have people being like crushed between shelves, or we have that spinning blade to the head, which was pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
I should have got the full one that we are going to get some actual gore in this movie. So when that scene happened, so the first time I saw it was pretty shocking to see just how gory they went with that sequence. So, but I think it was a payoff, especially because the guy was a jerk. So he deserves like the worst death of the film. So.
Yeah, no, it was, it was really, it was really something. I mean, but then, I mean, I think like a lot of them were, I think a lot of people that we lost in the movie, well, other than the boyfriend, was like, they deserve to die, I would say. The majority of them deserve to die. Other than, the starting people who are like, oh, now we have a shark in the water. But there's a few people that they kind of get caught up in their own plan, and then they try to have that hero moment, and because it's like the world that it's like karma hits them, or like the writers are like, oh, this is your karma.
Yeah, and obviously we have the token psychopath with Kirby.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's the other bank robber? Which I thought the whole sort of like the bit where they tried to like make you think that the second bank robber died in the
that's what I'm saying,
was...
like the fake out before, right?
I know, but it wasn't the best fake out, because you kind of knew that as soon as he turned up that, oh, he's the other guy, just that we've not been able to see the whole time. I think the most frustrating part about him is that what's he got over the other Doyle, because Doyle says he's only doing the bank robbery so he can get his brother off. And then they never really explain what happened with that situation. It's just like the tsunami hits and then it's just completely washed away with everything else. It's like, oh, I guess we're not going to find out what the big thing that Doyle's brother did.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, but that's exactly what I'm saying, is that, like, this situation is kind of like, doesn't really matter anymore because you don't even know if you're going to get out of this crap, right? You're stuck in the supermarket with a shark. And then no one knows if they're getting out. Every single plan they have is just kind of like, well, this is, the best idea out of, like, the worst ideas,
Yeah.
This is the best out of bad ideas kind of thing. Let's just try this out and see if it works, right? And it's just kind of amazing because I kind of really like the fact that in shark movies, we rarely have so many survivors. And this one is because they started out with such a big cast that they just had the ability to have so many people come out of this alive.
Yeah.
And then I really like the fact that, I always like movies where they kind of fake you out. They think that, they're going to sacrifice the dog and then the dog always makes it out.
Oh, that has to be like one of the biggest arsehole moments of the film was when when Kyle throws the dog.
and then it kind of makes it because, they had that argument about him being a monster and then Kyle dies right in the next scene.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, this, it's just like, he kind of deserved it.
Well, we also had the scene in the Meg with a little foo-foo dog as well, didn't we? So I don't know what it is about sharks and small dogs in these movies, but they really love to include that.
But I mean, sharks, and then, you have, recently we had Crawl, which had the same thing, which had the dog also, and movies like this always like to have some kind of pets, and then it adds to the equation. But then it's always like that fake out moment where you think they die, and then they don't.
Now, for the filming, they used 3 animatronic sharks, and because Render wanted to avoid using computer-generated image, but at the same time, the budget meant that they had to use CGI sharks just to sort of balance it all out. So I mean, I appreciate the fact there is some practical effects in here. I think it always adds to the film, and certainly if it had been another CGI shark fest, then I probably would have really not as been as effective as the film actually is, even though I do feel that in terms of plotting it does kind of sag towards the end.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was missing something. I think we just become too comfortable in the situation. There's not enough continuous threat that we have obviously in the first half of the situation. They all seem to be pretty adapted rather quickly to the situation, whether they're upstairs in the store or they're downstairs in the garage. So, but that being said, I mean, it was an enjoyable watch while it lasts. It's sort of one of those one and done sort of situations.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't mind watching this every once in a while. It's not like, fantastic movies like, I would watch, The Meg or Deep Blue Sea or something, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Bait lacks that kind of appeal a little because, like you said, there's some plotting issues and then there's a little bit too many tangents for my liking. Like, a little bit too much drama that's going on between these characters that feel like it's unnecessary to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I hate it when call me like a crazy person, but I love romance movies, but I hate it when people have like some like, oh, let's just kiss this moment. It's like not the right time.
It was totally
okay?
undeserved, wasn't it? That reconnection moment. It's all like, why are we having this moment now?
Yeah, and it's just because all movies do that. They have that, either it's like some makeup moment between a father and the child, or a parent with a child, or whether it's like, some relationship like this that broke and then now it's like, oh, I'm gonna face my death, let's have one last kiss in case anything happens, and I'm all for it in any other movie except for creature features. It's like my biggest pet peeve. Like, I hate it. I just think a lot of times it's so ridiculous to have it because it's not like, the movie spent a lot of time telling us about these two characters. They kind of just stared at each other a lot.
Yeah, they don't really have a lot
exactly
of connection,
like, they sorted things out. The only person who sorted it out was Tina's current boyfriend, who told him about the situation. They didn't sort anything out between them, They only were like, oh, you shouldn't feel sorry about it, Yeah, I don't blame you for anything. And then it's just kind of like... The makeup moment was like 5 minutes of the movie. And then it was like, yeah, let's have this kiss. So, yeah, no. I mean, considering that's, maybe the biggest issue I have with the movie, I mean, it's not a bad movie in that sense. Like, it's as a shark movie, all the shark bits are done. Like, it's very enjoyable. Even, like, the crappy CGI moments that's in there. Like, it's still done in a good way, like, with, the focus of it being underwater, and, there's a bit of tension that's going on, and you have enough people falling into the water and scrambling to get out, and the two locations gives, like, some kind of division between the two areas, so there's a good balance between the two, because there are two sharks that are, obviously haunting these two places, and, when the two scenes end up connecting together, where, the people from the top are trying to save the people from the bottom or whatever, then it kind of changes the movie dynamic a little bit more, because it gives it something to be, more, something to be excited about, I guess.
Yeah. So it
kind of keeps the movie keeps on going. Like, there's always something happening. So it's paced fairly well. I just feel, that, like, my biggest issue is with all the, stupid drama that goes on. But... other than that, I think it's a fairly competent movie. Like, I mean, I heard good things about this movie when it first came out, and that was one of the reasons why I've always wanted to watch it, but never had the chance to. And, watching the movie, it definitely kind of exceeded my expectations, especially when you're looking at, like, the DVD cover and stuff, and then, like, their description of the movie is just like, this sounds like a really bad B-horror. And then it kind of, like, exceeds your expectations.
Yeah. Cool. There was originally a sequel planned for the film called Deep Water, which was focused on a plane en route from China to Australia, crashing in the Pacific Ocean, and it was suspended in March 2014 due to uncomfortable similarities to the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. So, would you have liked to have seen a sequel to Bait?
Maybe not as a airplane falling out of the sky, but, like, another sequel, sure. I mean, I'm always down for shark movies, within reasonable, time frame for a sequel. Like, not like, Deep Blue Sea 2, which came, like, 17 years after the original or something.
Yeah, and it was just the same movie, which seemed more stupid.
Yeah. Pretty much. It was just the same movie with a different thing they needed to fix, the cure, and,
yeah.
Instead of a great white, whatever shark, you have like bull sharks, and, So, I don't want to talk about Deep Blue Sea 2 right now. I mean, we could do that for a bad Shark Week movie if we want one day. Just for, the purpose of completing the whole Deep Blue Sea thing that we had.
I'm about to say the number of good shark movies left on the list is quickly dwindling. It has to be said. It's only downhill from here.
Well, we have a few in our back pocket, which is okay. Which is okay. Well, but we still have a few seasons to go. We don't know. I mean, we'll work this out.
Yeah, it's not like we even have the excuse of, oh, well, there's not many left. We can switch, like, species and do, like, some crocodile movies or giant squid or something like that, because there's just so many shark movies. And the Asylum keeps making them, which is even worse, as you can have things like...
I've already stopped watching Asylum movies. Like, I used to be, like, super big on Asylum movies, and, like, especially, like, the shark ones, and I watched, like, the three-headed shark, two-headed shark attack or something like that, and... I don't know, at one point I just stopped watching it. It just felt like I can't do this anymore. Like, I still like Sharknado, but I haven't watched, like, the fourth or the fifth.
Oh, you got further than I did. I watched the first two and I was like, I'm done with this.
No, I like the guilty pleasure that's in these movies, but the third one was kind of like a real low point for me. there was a lot of, like, it was just, you know, like, the first two were so bad, it was good. And then the third one was just so bad, it's really bad. And then I was just like, I don't know about the fourth and the fifth, you know, like, I don't really know if I want to do this right now. And I wanted to watch it, and then it left Netflix, and then now I'm just like, well, I'm not dishing out money for it, so unless it goes back on Netflix, I'm not going to watch it, you know, kind of deal.
Oh, about to say they're always on the Sci-Fi Channel one day or another, so... I think that's the thing, they're just producing content for Sci-Fi who always seem to just be, like, showing these damn shark movies, and they're just getting stupider, like, I think there's one, like, Exorcist Shark or something, or Ouija Shark, or...
Oh, there's others. I mean, there is an endless amount. Like, if you have a shark movie idea, it's probably been done at one point or another. You know, like, as ridiculous as it all sounds, it's gonna have been done from Asylum or from some other whatever B horror thing that's going on, which is really crazy because, you know, I think that shark movies have a lot of potential. Obviously, I'd like to see other big creatures have their, you know, time, like. You know, I talked about in, you know, Friday Film Club about Crawl, you know, like, it's great to see that people are making other creature features and not just sharks, because, you know, sharks is overdone now at this point, and mostly thanks to Asylum making all these garbage B-horrors that, you know, there's not really, you know, it's just so hard to find a good shark movie now. It's, you go into a shark movie and you kind of expect the worst.
Yeah. And
you wonder what else can be done. And then, you know, you get movies where potentially, you know, like Bait or something, which seems bad, and then it turns out to be good. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, a lot of times I like to go watch B-horrors and stuff like that, because sometimes you give a chance to something that's bad, maybe it'll be good. It'll be surprisingly good. But, you know, obviously... we all know that, you know, as film buffs and just, you know, film connoisseurs, that good movies and great movies are, you know, like, just amazing movies are hard to come across in general and not just in, you know, the shark category.
Do you think that the fact that the shark genre has been so saturated with bad shark movies that it elevates anything slightly good, so that we view Bait in a slightly better light than we would do if these movies weren't so frequent? Because as it is,
I don't think so. I think that it's more the fact that people are very divided when it comes to, you know, shark movies or creature features in general. And people who really like creature features, like maybe me and you, compared to someone who doesn't really care for that type of horror movie or that kind of, like, thriller film, they're going to be nitpicking on different things. Like, I haven't watched, like, honestly, recently, I've been watching mostly decent shark movies. I haven't watched a bad shark movie, like, other than Deep Blue Sea 2.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're, and it doesn't make me feel like, because when I look at Bait, I'm not looking at it in a sense that, oh, maybe it's a bad movie and it exceeded my expectations. It's more like the little things that it does that really kind of elevates it to being a good shark movie. And it's like I said, you know, obviously, you know, how the camera plays with, you know, where the shark is and just like the little movements that it does, and, you know, knowing when to kind of hide the shark and not always giving it, you know, like the camera and the CGI, and just trying to play with those things. And, you know, knowing how to do that is one of those, like, really great moments in any horror movie or any creature feature. And sometimes it's greater than, you know, showing the shark than expecting it to come out of nowhere, kind of thing.
Further viewing, what would you pair this film with?
I feel like I'm going in the same, like, whenever we do shark films, I always do the same kind of further viewing, and I feel like, and I don't remember what I've done before, so, and I didn't make the effort to go look at what I've done before. So, I might have talked about these before as further viewing, but I'd say, like, in a closed space, I would say 47 Meters Down.
Okay.
That's the name of the movie, right? Yeah. And then, if we have another Australian shark movie, which I probably refer to this one like the other two also, and that's The Reef, which is a phenomenal one. It's in an open sea. It's not in a closed space, but it is very, very, like, tense as an Australian movie. Like, another very, very competent shark movie. One that I think, this one is actually, I think, better than Bait. But it is, as an Australian shark movie, it is very, very strong.
It's surprising that we don't see more creature features from Australia, and I think I can only assume it's because, you know, when you live in a country where pretty much everything can kill you, that they're not so much a draw to make like shark movies and deadly creature movies, and that's why we see like a lot more sort of like slashers and zombie movies and anything that they can work a good car chase into, because the Aussies do really love a good car chase. And it's like you have like these family dramas like Frog Dreaming and these coming of age dramas, and they have this random car chase sequence in it. So
well, I mean, even when they did like the Wolf Creek TV series, it was like the girls like driving across Australia, you know. So it's yeah.
Oh yeah,
and then
when in Wolf Creek, you had that whole random chase sequence, because of course he just happens to have a bloody muscle car in the middle of the outback. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, and then, I mean, other than that, I actually thought that I felt a little bit, although it's a much, much worse movie in my mind. And I don't remember much of this movie anymore. But another shark movie that's kind of like links to kind of like the teenage, like kind of like a, I don't know, adolescent drama. Yeah. I don't know, not young adult drama, I guess that's what you should call it, is kind of like Shark Night. It's such a bad movie, but it does try to be clever. It does try very hard, but it doesn't quite get there. I think in that sense, like, I don't know. That might be a shark movie that people might want to watch with this. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something that's not movies that I've referred to before.
It's funny how many times Shark Night I've come so close to recommending that we do it. And I think it's just only for the whole scene where you have the drive to the lake and you get to watch the whole drive. Because they need to pad the movie out so badly.
I know. That movie was, I don't remember like the majority of it. I remember it tried to have some kind of like clever twist of like who's responsible for this whole thing and whatever, and I was just like, I think it's coming back to me now as we're talking about it.
Okay.
But I think, like, you know, when you talk about kind of like having that kind of like drama and, you know, teenage partying and sharks coming there and whatnot, I mean, Shark Night is alright. It's alright.
Another 3D shark film as well.
I know. Yeah.
Don't make it any better, but I'm just saying that if you...
Yeah, but hey, it's a good pairing. You know, 2 3D movies changed to 2D.
I remember the horror movie over at Horror Movie A Day that he wrote that he'd like spent most of the day trying to find a 3D showing of Bait when it came out. So there are its fans out there. For myself, I'm going a very sort of randomist direction, and I'm going to say John Carpenter's 1976 film Assault on Precinct 13. The reason being that it's a similar idea of having the siege, and you got the law enforcement officer forced to team up with the criminal element to sort of unite to a cause. In this film, you've got the police officer played by Austin Stoker, who is assisting with the closing of the title of Precinct 13, only to find it under siege by a relentless criminal gang, and forcing him to team up with the convicted murderer played by Darwin Joston, and the two forced to like defend the precinct as it comes under siege by this street gang. I've just as I say, we obviously had Julian McMahon's sort of criminal character there, and he's sort of like the cop was forced to put his duty aside to sort of team up together. It just made me constantly think back to like, wow, I could watch Assault on Precinct 13 and have a similar sort of experience here, apart from it being better. But yeah, that's the one I would recommend with this one. So
good.
Cool.
Good.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode, and wrapping up another edition of our Shark Night. Obviously, on the next episode, we are still in our After Hours specials, and it's Kim's turn to pick first. And Kim, what are you going to have us watch?
I'm going to have us watch the 2019's First Love, Takashi Miike's movie. It's a action crime drama, so it's going to be a fun time.
Definitely excited to see this one. Takashi Miike, director with only a mere over 100 directorial credits to his name. An absolute cult figure within Japanese cinema, and one of the directors responsible for reviving interest in Asian cinema in the early 2000s with the release of Audition and most of his filmography as it was filtered over. And since then, he's obviously begun to become a much more mainstream director. So with First Love, it's one I've been really excited to see, much like any time we get a new Miike movie. But this one came out on Valentine's Day, so if you took your partner to see this movie on Valentine's Day, I'd really love to hear how that one went. So
yeah, and I mean, it's great to do a Takashi Miike movie too, because, you know, like you said, he has 100 credits. He's never gonna make it on our seasons because we'd have to do like 10 seasons to cover all his movies. So maybe we'll trickle a few into these after hours over time.
Yeah, cool. But that's obviously coming up on our next episode. If you want to obviously check out our archive, you can do. We are on moviesandteapodcast.wordpress.com, and wherever you happen to be listening to us, please do hit the like and subscribe button if you're listening to us on Anchor or Podomatic or iTunes or Google Play or Spotify. It really does help raise the profile of the show, much like leaving us a review. Let us know what you think of the show, and certainly films you think we should be checking out, or even directors whose filmographies you feel deserve to be reevaluated over the course of a season. We always love to hear from you guys. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and we're also on Instagram as well. So plenty of places to come and interact with us as well. But thank you as always to my co-host Kim, and thank you everyone for listening, and we will be back next time talking about Takashi Miike's First Love. Good night.